Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister Jolie, for being with us today. Of course, we have a copy of the redacted contract, the special contribution agreement of up to $15 billion taxpayer dollars, and the Strategic Innovation Fund, which represents a $500 million contribution from your government. Of course, to Stellantis for the Nexstar EV battery plant, as you know, courtesy of CBC last week. So now we have a situation where 3,000 people have been laid off in the Brampton facility, as you know, and you've responded to say that you're going to sue them, that they've broken their promises. And just today you've announced that you're starting the formal dispute resolution. So I'm trying to understand what exactly the promise is that you're saying they broke, assuming that that means that they broke a promise they signed in the contract. So can you tell the committee where in this agreement, courtesy of CBC, is that Canada-wide jobs guarantee? What clause?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the different, so I think we should be clear, there are 3 different contracts. This committee will have access to it. The government is acting in good faith. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of these contracts and will be able to have access to it. So it's not a courtesy of CBC or not. The government has already accepted the production
but in
of
that's
the contract.
The first that I'm able to see it. So is it in that contract or is it in another CIF agreement?
So obviously you'll see in the contract that all the contracts are linked. And clearly, it is about protecting jobs. It is about also the production at the Brampton facility. So you'll see that clearly. So, by the way, I must say, Raquel, because I think your question is really an important one, this committee, although it's not necessarily the same members, but this committee got access to contracts for the Nexstar facility 2 years ago. So that's why the government has never been clearer that you can obviously have access to it.
Those were read in confidence. We do know they're going to OGO, and now CBC has released it. So this is the first access we've been able to publicly see the contract. And again, I'll just say as an aside, this is, of course, a professional setting, Minister, so I'm extending a professional courtesy to you to refer to as Minister Jolie. I would appreciate that same courtesy to me in this setting. Thank you. So in this contract, though, there is no jobs guarantee other than the 2,500 at the Nexstar plant. So are you saying that the other CIF agreement that was for retooling Brampton and Windsor, does that contain a Brampton jobs guarantee?
So I must dispute what you just said. This is not a fact. There's always job numbers guarantees. That's exactly why the government of Canada and also the government of Ontario in this case have decided to support the company. Because at the end of the day, why do we do this? MP Dencho, we do that because we believe that it's important to create jobs, to protect jobs and create jobs.
Minister,
so you will have access to the information. You will see in the contract that there are job numbers.
Thank you.
And of course, there are things that are commercially sensitive, but the government will be acting in good faith.
But in the contract that we were provided from CBC publicly, there is a jobs commitment to the Nexstar plant. There is no mention of Brampton. So I'm asking you, in the contract we have not been able to see for Brampton, is there a jobs guarantee for Brampton?
There are jobs guarantees in all the different contracts, but I must say also that you absolutely need to make sure that you see not only the contract that is linked to the investment through the Strategic Innovation Fund for the Windsor and Brampton facility, but also its amendment. And we'll make sure that that's the case.
So you're saying that the Nexstar, the 2 contracts you've provided to them that total well over $15 billion, that you're tying that contract being paid out to the other CIF agreement for the Brampton and Windsor retooling. Is that correct? Because they're in violation of a Brampton.
The 3 contracts are linked. There's a contract and an amendment.
14.1G.
So,
yeah.
A couple of things. And maybe, Charles, if you want to be able to address the question by MP Dencho. But just before I pass it to Charles, it is really important to understand that in the contract, when you refer to $15 billion, the $15 billion was linked to the production and sale of batteries. So when you look at Windsor right now, and obviously your colleague would know because she's from the writing, the facility has been built, but the company is still hiring. And there's not been any production and sale of batteries yet. So the government has not spent $15 billion. So I know that some colleagues have been using the term $15 billion, but it's not accurate.
Up to $15 billion, though. It's
not been spent yet by the government, and that's an important fact.
What you're saying, though, is that because those 3,000 jobs at Brampton were laid off, they're in violation of their agreements. Fair enough. Now, you're saying that there is a Brampton jobs guarantee in that other SIF agreement that no one in the media or ourselves has seen that's going to OGO. We welcome that opportunity to see that. But you're saying there's a jobs guarantee in there that will link it to the Nexstar battery plant. Is that correct?
It's actually linked to the fact that the Brampton facility must be operating, and there is not a possibility. If the Brampton facility ceases its production, there will be a violation of the contract.
And that's going to impact your agreements with the Nexstar plant. Is that correct?
And that's why we're actually starting today with the mechanism of dispute settlement, because it is important that we be able to hold the company
so are you
to account.
Prepared
but
then?
I just, MP Dencho, maybe Charles, you want to add something?
Sure. Thank you very much. I guess what I would just highlight in all the agreements under the Strategic Innovation Fund, there are regular commitments around jobs, around the maintenance of activity, and so those are the types of economic
Just with my
activity.
remaining 10 seconds, so are you prepared to pull back some of this up to $15 billion and the other funding from Nexstar if they don't properly equip with the 3,000 workers in Brampton? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you prepared to make that commitment? You're going to roll back some Nexstar funding?
Well, we'll make sure that basically we continue to uphold them to the funding that they're liable for, period. Yeah, well, ultimately the goal was to create jobs. And so obviously there were job numbers, and obviously it was linked to the fact that we needed to protect the Brampton facility. I was not negotiating at the time, but this is clear through the very evaluation and just the fact that just reading the contracts. When you see that there are contracts that are linked to investing in the Windsor plant that are linked to the Brampton facility, or investing in the Windsor Nexstar LG, basically Stellantis LG contract linked to the Brampton facility. So clearly it was to protect the jobs. And so that was the position of the government.
If I may, so again, what we're trying to dig down is if your government instituted a clause in one of these three agreements that guaranteed the broader Stellantis footprint in Canada, including the 3,000 jobs that were just laid off. You know this. So what I'm trying to drill down is if there was something in the contracts, there isn't one in here. Brampton is even mentioned in the contract for the Nexstar agreement. I understand they can be linked. There is a clause 14.1G that may link it to the Brampton facility. But you're not committing whether there was a clear jobs guarantee there. So your argument is, oh, no, we're covered. We're suing them in clear grounds. But you're not telling us, in fact, if there was 3,000 jobs guaranteed in that SIF agreement. So that's the real question I have, because there is significant commitments, as you know, up to $15 billion in partnership with Ontario. We have also another $1 billion of capital investment as well for the retooling of Brampton and Windsor under the SIF agreement. I'm trying to nail down if there's a jobs requirement for Brampton. A further $500 million in this SIF agreement for the Nexstar. We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars. And from our estimation and the historic investment that your government has made, surely there should be an explicit Canada-wide jobs guarantee. But we're splitting hairs here. You're kind of being quite evasive of the numbers, whether there's a real guarantee. It should be explicit if you're going to give a historic amount of taxpayer funding. In fact, just to wrap up, Mr. Chair, I will just say this. I'm not sure if you understand the magnitude of the money that you've committed, but I did some math. And the number of two-parent full-time working households that had to work for your government to provide just its contribution to Stellantis is over 647,000 Canadian families had to work an entire year for your government to provide up to $11 billion. And there is no explicit jobs guarantee in anywhere here. So
you're putting words into my mouth, which I don't agree.
Of whether there's a 3,000
and also, you're not being true to the contract.
You're not giving
the contract is until 2032. So you're, math doesn't work.
There isn't how many taxpayers have to pay.
Finish and then MP
Yeah, I think it's important when you look at the different contracts that first and foremost, particularly on the battery front, the contract is 1/3 the government of Ontario and 2/3 the government of Canada. So it's not $15 billion. I know that the MP has referred to $15 billion for the government of Canada.
Because this isn't what I asked you specifically.
But to go specifically on the job numbers, we'll look at what is possible to make public because of commercially sensitive information.
If I may on that
but
specific point,
I
please.
just want to
If I
finish
may
my
on that
answer.
specific point,
and
please, if you'll
therefore
allow me,
we will be
Minister. It is
able
my
to
time,
answer
so I'm
your
just going to have
question.
to respond. So on the commercially sensitive redactions, now on the SIF agreement for
Mm-hmm.
Nexstar, the jobs guarantee of 2,500 was not redacted, so it stands to reason that it wouldn't be redacted, wouldn't be commercially sensitive under a different SIF agreement. Surely you can tell us if there was a 3,000 person jobs guarantee for Brampton, and that's not commercially sensitive information. So it is concerning to me that you're not committing that there was a jobs guarantee for the Brampton
that's
facility.
not what I'm saying.
So you're saying that there
I'm
is-
saying that all the plants were linked and all the contracts are linked. So you will be able to see it when we will be producing.
But if there
the
wasn't a jobs guarantee of 3,000 people at Brampton, which is the whole reason you're here, then how is it that you're tying all of the money to a jobs guarantee that may or may not exist? You should be able to tell us if there is a jobs guarantee for the 3,000 jobs in
I think
Brampton.
you're falling into the trap of trying to find a problem where there's none.
Well, the problem is that
Because
3,000 people were laid
what the
off,
government
and your
was trying
government
to
committed
do-
thousands, millions, and billions, in fact, of dollars.
Well, MP
And we're
Dencho, I
trying
don't
to
know whether
understand
you
if
want this to be a
there's-
monologue or you want me
Well,
to
but
appear.
the
Because
question
if you
I'm
want
asking
this
you
to
is
be a
very
monologue,
clear.
I
Colleagues.
don't need to be here.
Mr. I want to really drill down on this Brampton issue. Again, it's 3,000 jobs, as you've said, and you've linked the contract, the SIF retooling with Brampton and Windsor to the Nexstar plants. So I need to understand, though, you mentioned there was a production guarantee for the Brampton SIF agreement, but you did not specify an employment guarantee number. So was it 3,000 jobs that SIF agreement with Brampton guaranteed?
So I will provide that information through you because obviously they're commercially sensitive information. So I
If
just